I lost 80 pounds eating whatever I wanted, including stuff like this. So I struggled with my weight from the time I was a little kid. When I was about 6 years old, I remember I went to the doctor and I was overweight. And the way I remember it is the doctor handed me a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, there was a list of, good foods that I was supposed to eat and a list of bad foods that I was supposed to stay away from. And the problem was, on that list of good foods, it was all stuff that I just hated. I hated vegetables as a kid. I didn't like any of the things that were supposed to be good for you. And on the other hand, all those foods that were on the bad list, things like cookies and brownies and mayonnaise, were things that I loved. And so from that time forward, I struggled with my weight. And I continued to look at food as either bad or good. And the thing was, I always felt bad about eating the bad stuff. And I never really felt that great about eating the good stuff because I felt resentful that I couldn't have the bad stuff. And so predictably, I did a lot of yo-yo dieting. When I was on a diet, I was usually losing weight. I'd get down to a goal weight. But the time that I spent in that restriction mode was miserable. I was always resentful that I couldn't eat what I liked. And then when I finally got down to my goal weight, I was like, freedom. And so then I would go back to eating all the foods that I loved. And then of course my weight would predictably go back up. So by the time I was 30 years old, I was obese and I was really frustrated. For the millionth time, I found myself trying to sit down and write out some weight loss goals. I decided to, do it right. Figure out some sub goals, some smaller goals that I can attain, and I needed to come up with rewards. And so I thought, okay, when I lose 20 pounds, I need to reward myself with something really motivating. And you know what I came up with? A pint of Ben & Jerry's. So in that moment, I had a bit of an epiphany. I realized, that's actually probably not a great idea to let food be the reward, because the fact is, food is something I need to learn how to interact with every single day. What I should be doing is figuring out how I can have Ben & Jerry's right now and still lose weight. So that was 2015, and that year I actually ended up losing about 15 pounds total. And there were plenty of times where I would doubt myself and I'd think maybe I should really, not let myself have, the hash browns with cheese or that piece of chocolate cake. And my weight loss had plateaued for about 6 months, and I was very close to giving back in and going back to that cycle of just like restrict all these foods, and then, once I get it off, and then I'll just try to do better this time. But I just was really stubborn with myself, and I said, no, I have got to make this a rule. And in the beginning of 2016, that's what I said. Okay, from now on, I'm gonna eat all the foods guilt-free. Nothing is off the table. There's nothing that I'm gonna have like only once in a while or that I need to take it easy on. I'm just gonna eat the food. One thing really helped me with adopting this frame of mind, and that was the story of Dr. Mark Hobb. He is a nutrition professor at Fort Hays State University in Kansas. He got this idea that he should try a junk food diet or a convenience store diet, or it was also called the Twinkie diet by the people in the media. He decided to do an experiment where he just ate all these convenience foods, things like Doritos or, M&Ms or double stuffed Oreos, and he just ate that stuff, and he kept himself in a caloric deficit. And he ended up losing 27 pounds. Now you may think, well, yeah, but I bet all of his other health markers did really terribly. But that's not true either. His HDL numbers increased by 20%, which that's the movement you want to see, and his LDL numbers decreased by 20%. And his triglycerides decreased by 39%. Now, I'm not trying to convince you to just switch over and eat all of these foods all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, provided that you eat in a caloric deficit overall, Little Debbie can still be in your life. Now, here's a really weird thing that happened. Once I started letting myself eat all these foods guilt-free, and really, it's important to note how serious I was about this. And I found myself testing myself about this when I first put in this rule. I told myself, I can have whatever I want. I don't have to take it easy on any of this stuff. Whatever I want, that's what I get to eat. And so if I want to sit there and have 2 pieces of cake and really not have very much food otherwise, that's fine. The main thing is just to lose the weight. That's what I was really concerned about, because I could see obesity was not good for me. I could see that it was going to lead to all sorts of health problems down the road. So I really wanted to get the weight off. And here's the really weird thing that happened. Once I said I can have as much of this as I want, I found that over time, I really didn't want it so much anymore. Not to say that I don't still love these things. I do, but I don't find myself craving them. And most importantly, when I do sit down to have some Oreos or have a little Debbie Christmas tree cake, I eat the right amount. I have stopping power. And I think this comes down to this idea that forbidden food is really the sweetest. In other words, when a thing is just allowed all the time, it loses its power, it loses its draw, and then you can still have it, and I'm still gonna enjoy that food, but it just doesn't have that power over me that it used to have. Now, one thing I really want to make clear is that I do not tell myself, oh, you can have whatever you want, you just need to take it easy. I feel like that really backfires, because as soon as you start having that in your head, like, oh, but that's like, you can't really have as much as you want of that, it just makes it more powerful. But if you just tell yourself like, okay, yeah, like you can have whatever you want. If you just want to have nothing but this all day long, and just want to do all this type of food, I have that ability, I'll do it. But you know what? I don't think I've ever done that. And I think the reason for this is because once you just say, okay, you can have whatever you want, then it kind of clears your mind. And you can really pay attention to like what really makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel so good. And also, when do you enjoy things and when do you not? Having this rule really gave me some clarity on things. There were a lot of foods that I was eating simply because they were kind of off limits. For example, chocolate chip granola bars. I used to think, oh, these are so great. I would have 2 or 3 at a time. And then once I said, you can have whatever you want, once I didn't have those guilty feelings anymore, I could really pay attention to, how does this taste? Do I really like this? And what I found for those granola bars is they kind of taste like styrofoam. They're not really good. On the other hand, I love a good double stuffed Oreo. I mean, they are amazing. But because I can just enjoy them, I can also just stop when I'm full, because again, there's no guilt. I think it's really important that if you try this tactic, that you don't do it with the intent that it will help you eat these foods less frequently. Because again, I think that gives these foods more power than they should have. Now, I know a very common piece of advice is to get rid of all this stuff, keep it out of your house, that way you won't eat it. But I just have found better results when I say you can have whatever foods and you can have it in the house. And by having it in the house and not having these rules against it, what I've found is I've just learned how to eat the right amount. A really great thing about this strategy is that it makes your plan really flexible, because you can just go, to any kind of situation, anything that your friend is cooking for dinner, it's okay because that's on the menu. You go to a pizza party, it's okay, pizza's on the plan. The key, as always, is just to eat the right amount. Now, of course, this is just what worked for me. If you have a plan and you're doing it and it's all working for you, I say go do that plan. I'm no expert. It's just I want to share this with you because it is a thing that I used to struggle with all the time. And at this point, I've been maintaining my weight in a healthy range for over 8 years now. And if you'd like to know more about my 80-pound weight loss journey and exactly the techniques that I use to lose that 80 pounds, you can check out my book, The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting. This is available on Amazon and many other fine retailers. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.